You alright there guys, today we're going to be turning this beautiful piece of beef into the star attraction of our English Sunday roast. And just look at the colour of that. We don't wait till Thanksgiving or Christmas to have a meal like this. This is a Sunday for us. First up of our many components is our Yorkshire pudding. So crack 4 eggs into a bowl and give it a good whisk. Then into that pour 200ml of milk, followed by 200 grams of plain flour. Make sure you add this a little bit by little bit as to stop the lumps forming, but give that a good mix together before adding a splash of olive oil, a good pinch of salt and a touch of pepper, and then a little sprinkle of nutmeg. Combine all that together and make sure you have consistency something like this, so it's coating the back of a spatula, and transfer it to a jug, and we're going to let it sit in the fridge for a good half an hour. The secret is to let the batter rest, and while that's resting we're going to chop up our onions, garlic, celery and carrots, otherwise known as mirepoix. As we're using this for a gravy, we don't need to peel and we just need to roughly chop, and then just set them in a bowl to the side, ready to use later. And then we're going to peel potatoes, and then we're going to chop them in half 3 times, so you end up with 8, all of equal size. Don't waste the potato skins though, as a little treat, dry them off, throw them into some hot oil, fry them for a couple of minutes, remove them and lay them on some paper towel, lightly season, let them cool a little bit and you've got a perfect little snack to keep you going till dinner time. Back to the potatoes, we're just going to cover them with cold water, take them to the hob, turn it on full and bring it up to boil as fast as you possibly can. But while that's coming up to boil, we're going to peel and chop some parsnips, chop them into good sized batons because they will shrink in the oven, and then peel and chop some carrots, roughly the same size. Then season with some cracked black pepper, some salt and some honey. Then drizzle with some olive oil and throw some thyme over it. Then give them a good move about just to make sure they're all fully coated in the oil and the honey, and just leave them to a side, ready to put in the oven. Now as you can see, our water has come up to the boil. You just want to turn it down and simmer for a good 10 minutes. Or until your potatoes just slightly start to break away at the edges. That's when they're perfect. You don't want to cook them all the way through because we are going to be roasting them. Transfer them to a paper towel to cool off and to try and dry out as much as you can. Now onto the next veg, just snip the stalk off the Brussels sprouts and peel off the outer layer. And then just cut the ball in half. And again, leave it to the side, ready to cook. Now onto the pork stuffing, we've got 400 grams of minced pork. To that we're going to pick and chop a good bunch of thyme. Then dice up half a white onion nice and fine. If you don't know the best way to chop up an onion, just follow what I'm doing here by slicing down and then making 3 incisions across, and then just slicing down again to make the dice. And then do the same to 2 cloves of garlic, making sure it's all nice and fine. And then we're going to grate an apple. Dice up some dried apricot, roughly chop some cranberries and some walnuts. Throw them all together with a big pinch of salt, then some cracked black pepper and a couple of splashes of Worcester sauce. Then instead of breadcrumbs, we're going to use steel cut oats just to make it a little bit healthier. Then crack 1 egg to bind it and then mix it all together. Make sure everything's evenly distributed throughout the mix. Then transfer to a baking tray, cover with foil and leave to the side, ready to cook later. Now for the Yorkshire puddings, we're going to actually use a Yorkshire pudding tin, which is pretty much just like a muffin tin, but a little bit bigger. We're going to fill these with oil just below halfway and stick it in the oven at 220 degrees to get it really nice and hot. The secret is to have cold mixture but really hot oil. So you want to fill these nearly up to the top. Be careful with the oil, make sure it doesn't overflow, but you can see it started to cook and bubble already. Once the whole tray is full, stick it in the oven, 220 degrees, 20 to 25 minutes. Do not open that oven door until they look like this. As you can see, my oven isn't quite even all the way through, as some have risen a lot and some are not so much. But that is a beautiful Yorkshire pudding right there, crispy on the outside, almost gooey on the inside. And a tip to get the perfect cooking time is to weigh your meat, and then for every 500 grams, it'll be in the oven for 20 minutes. So this was 800 grams, so we're going to cook this for half an hour. So first, season it well with salt and pepper, making sure you mop up all that seasoning from the chopping board. And then into an almost smoking meat tray, you want to place it skin down to seal the outside. We're just going to be cooking it around the edges to get that light brown colour. So keep turning it and don't forget the ends as well. And then once browned, remove from the pan, but leave the pan on the heat for now. We're going to throw in our mirepoix and just give it a little saute before resting the beef back on top, like a little bed, and sticking it in the oven at 180 degrees for the half an hour that we calculated before. And while that's in the oven, we can also cook our roast potatoes. So in another baking tray, melt down 150 grams of lard or goose fat or duck fat or whatever kind of fat you want to use. And when that gets to just about smoking, you want to throw in your potatoes. Make sure the potatoes are fully covered in the fat and stick them in the oven with the meat. Then we can do our Brussels sprouts. So into some salted boiling water, we're going to cook them for about 3 minutes. And in a separate pan, we're going to cook off some pancetta. If you've timed it right, the pancetta will be perfectly rendered just as the Brussels sprouts are cooked through. The aim is to finish off cooking the Brussels sprouts in the fat from the pancetta. This will give an amazing amount of flavour. So give that a nice good toss together before throwing in a big knob of butter and some cracked black pepper and then toss it again to emulsify the butter, and you'll have the most amazing Brussels sprouts and pancetta that you're ever going to get in your life. Now the beef has been in the oven for a good half an hour, so we're going to take it out and leave it to the side to rest. We're going to be resting it for a good 15-20 minutes, so we've got perfect amount of time to finish off all the other things. So we're going to use the mirepoix to make the gravy, so throw in a bunch of thyme and some cherry tomatoes. This will give it a nice little sweetness to the gravy. Then sprinkle over a couple of tablespoons of flour and just give that a mix to coat everything. And you can take it a step further by giving it all a little mash just to release all that flavour from all the ingredients. Then deglaze your tray with a decent red wine, one that you would actually drink, and whisk it all together to try and release all that fond from the bottom of the baking tin. Then top it up with about 700ml of good beef stock. Give it another mix and give it another press as well. Then at the end, just add in a splash of vinegar and a splash of Worcester sauce. And then strain it through a sieve, making sure to get all that sexiness from the bottom of the tray and give it one final push through so you can get all them juices. I might have forgot to mention, but when the beef went in, I also put in the parsnips and carrots and the stuffing. Literally everything was cooking at once, so it all comes together perfectly. As you can see, they're nearly ready, but the potatoes need a little bit longer, so we're going to turn them and stick them back in again. And there we go, the carrots and parsnips are ready. The stuffing is beautiful, the smell coming off that is just incredible. But here we go, it's the final push, so pour your gravy into a jug, and then make sure you tip the juices from resting the beef into the gravy. It's all extra flavour. Then cut your string off and stick it on a board, and then start piling round all your other things. The incredibly flavourful Brussels sprouts and pancetta, them amazingly sweet honey glazed carrots and parsnips. Make sure you pile high with Yorkshire puddings. And then finally our roast potatoes are ready, and look how crispy golden brown they are, full of flavour from that pork lard. Then stick to the side your pork stuffing, technically not even stuffing because it's not actually stuffed anything, but you know what I mean when I say stuffing. And there you go, are you ready for the moment of truth? I mean, you've already seen it because I put it at the beginning of the video, but look how pink that is. That is literally perfectly cooked. If you cut into it too early after pulling it out of the oven, you're going to lose all them juices and flavour. Let's finish off the plating with a little bit of stuffing on the board and give you one final look around. And for those that have made it this far in the video, I thank you. And if you'd like to support the channel any more, please check out my Patreon link below. Even the price of a cup of coffee a month, it will really help me out. But guys, I'll see you in the next one. And remember, just keep cooking.